Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACTN. It's always a pleasure every Tuesday evening where we come into your home and where we talk sports. Today, I have the... I was trying to find a name for these guys, eh?
Dynamic
because duo. Dynamic.
That's one word.
Anyway, viewers, from time to time, I always bring these guys on the show, and when I walk the road, people always say, hey, them two fellas, bring them back now. I like them, they this, yeah. So, well, if you always say so, well, I'll take all the word for it. But anyway, let me welcome Dennis Allen, CEO of Rep 868.
TT Game Plan, Rep 868.
And the... I think our next name
Chief Sidekick.
Chief Sidekick. Mine a little
Chief Sidekick.
A real repping this morning.
Right, you repping.
Yeah, with the bigger logo.
With the bigger logo.
Gill. Chris.
Asking for a raise from a CEO, but he ain't getting it, right?
Chris, welcome.
Welcome. How are you?
Hey, what's up, man?
It's been a little while.
Giles, please play our intro music so that the people will know who is in the building. That's right.
Yep.
God is a Trinidad, God is a Trinidad. From Sando to Togo, from Port of Spain to Piaco. God is a Trinidad, God is a Trinidad.
So we here, man.
Yeah,
You
so
know-
much has happened.
Just now, before you start,
Yeah.
I wonder if the people understand this place that we're in here. You know, every time we come here, I
Right.
have to reconnect. This is San Fernando Hill.
Yeah.
You know, the native Trinidadians from before the Columbus invasion, this was a sacred place to
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And it's no coincidence that this church here is doing something powerful like ACTN, because it's the connection to things. You see all my paws raising there? That's real vibes. Every time I come up here, it's like a reconnecting to some ancient thing.
Yeah.
It's a real powerful moment. So I'm always very glad to be able to come here and share. This morning, I was now coming from the bank, taking out my last little inbird pesos. I will have to send you the check.
All right, okay.
And a guy was like, hey, I see you, man. You look good on that show. You look good. He was like, me? I look around to see who we talking to, right? He's like, yeah. It's talk sense. Yes,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Actually, I met a fan in a supermarket Saturday when I was shopping, and he said the same
The
thing.
Black Lasco fan from in that video. That's not the fun kind of
that
thing.
kind of-
Not that kind of show. We don't talk about that. Yeah. No, but seriously,
But it was
you know,
good.
the
It's good.
audience.
It's good that y'all getting some traction.
I do, from time to time, get some good feedback when you all come on the program.
Yeah,
honestly.
my adventures on
You
San
understand?
Fernando Hill was
Yeah.
a little different
You
from back in the day.
you know who also give me some good feedback to Tony Maxwell.
Who's that?
Oh, yes,
Tony
yes.
Hart Maxwell, you know
Yeah,
him.
he's a coach.
Hi, right.
That's my cousin, you know.
Oh, that's it. Oh,
Yeah, my
you have some good
that's,
family.
his mother was my aunt.
Right.
You know, so we get some good feedback.
Right, man. Nice.
Well, so much has happened, you know.
So where you want to begin? Start.
Well, 2 weeks back, I thought we were going to have a Kerry Packer
I like how you
football league. Because you remember
The breakaway.
the breakaway fraction with the Kerry Packer.
AKA the European Super League.
Right, but when I saw that European Super League, I went back to the Kerry Packer series because that destroyed a lot of cricketers, because all those who were involved in that were banned by West Indies and they never even had the opportunity to come back in cricket.
But that's not quite true, but go ahead.
But that lasted longer than this thing here with this football. But what's your take on it? To be honest, when I try to view the little comments and thing, I didn't see it working, honestly. I felt it would have serious backlash.
You want to jump in first, Chris?
Yeah, because I am in agreement with the European Super League in principle. And I'll say that, and a lot of people will say, God, nah, boy, Chris, you can't be so. But this is my thought process on it. You have teams like Manchester United, Man City, Arsenal, Real Madrid, or whatever. Let's take the English Premier League, where every club in the Premier League gets the same revenue per the deal by Sky TV for being in the Premier League. If it's 10 million US or 50 million, whatever that thing is. So you have a team like West Bromwich Albion, for example, receiving the same basic funds or revenue that Manchester United gets. But the reality of it is, if West Brom is playing Fulham, you ain't watching that match. You're not. If Leeds is playing Sheffield United, you ain't watching that match. But you'll watch Manchester City playing whoever, or Man United playing whoever, or Tottenham playing whoever, even though they're not a top 6 team in terms of results right now, you'll still watch them. You'll still watch at Arsenal. You still might watch at Chelsea. And what these teams have been saying for quite some time is that they spend more money to get that response, and therefore they deserve more money. And so even though the way the current deal is done is an equitable share among all the Premier League clubs, what they are, most of these other European clubs, in Real Madrid is a classic example in the Spanish La Liga. If you could tell me 10 other teams in Spanish La Liga, I wish you luck. You understand what I'm saying? You can't tell me 10 other teams. You can't tell me 10 other teams inside the Italian league. After Inter Milan, Juventus, Roma, who else? You don't know. Who's Sassuolo? You know who they are? So what all these teams are saying is, we are the reason people are coming to football, and we deserve a bigger share of the pie. And maybe they went about it in a bad way. But the reality remains, and what people don't realize is Super League is coming one way or the other. They will have a European Super League. It mightn't come in this form. It might take another 10 years. But those teams will want a way to maximize their spending and their expenditure by bringing in the income that is equal to what they are spending. And in the end, that will happen.
I have 2 basic problems with the whole Super League concept. First of all, if you can't be relegated and you can't be promoted into it, then that defeats the entire purpose of the football model. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. The other problem is the idea that because you spend more money, you deserve more money. I wish I could do that. If I could go and stop by every nutsman on the highway and spend $10 and then come back at the end of the day after I drive around every corner in the world and everything, and I come back and I have $10 million home, I would love to do that. Every day I will get up in the morning, bounce my Saturn and drive around and spend more money so I could get more money. But unfortunately, that's not how business works. Business is risk. Business is investment. So even though Real might spend the money and create the Galacticos, Los Galacticos, they still get beat.
Yeah.
Los Galacticos still got beat.
Yeah, but the problem
they get beat at home.
It's not them getting beat.
They get beat at home from some of them teams that they wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, that's not the problem.
They get beat at home from other teams in their same city.
So
By the time many fans watching them
Chris
get
was
beat.
alluding to is that some of the teams that spending just as much, not getting the recognition they want?
It's a straight case of spending money and revenue. Even when Real Madrid lose a match, as he says, to a team that we never heard of, that in the La Liga, it's their fan base that's watching, that's bringing revenue to the media outlet that's putting the show, the match on, and the sponsors that can advertise on a Real Madrid match. The reality of it is, if 2 non-popular Spanish teams are playing a Spanish La Liga game, the viewing audience is 1/10 of the battle between Real Madrid and Barcelona. So therefore, the advertising value of that game is much, much higher.
So every week we should have El Clasico then?
No, what I'm saying, you see...
Every week we should have a Milan derby. Every week we should have a Manchester derby.
What he is saying is exactly what the European Super League intention is. That every week you have a Milan derby. Well, not quite, but you understand? Because if you have all the super teams of Europe clashing with each other all the time, then the audience, they are estimating in their mind that the audience is going to be at a certain level and above. Now, whether or not...
I don't buy that argument, Chris.
You don't have to buy it. What I'm saying is they obviously did their research. They didn't just jump out. They didn't just jump out.
Don't worry, he know them checks ain't going
The thing about it is, like the head of Juventus or whoever, they didn't just jump out with the idea and say, boy, let me just form a super... No, they would have done their research. They would have gone in and done their figures.
Wait, hold on. How you could do research and end up with Arsenal and Tottenham?
because they are popular teams regardless of the results.
Come on, man. Listen, hold on.
Name 5 popular English teams, George, that you know since the 80s.
I want to name...
I'm just asking.
Manchester United.
Don't try to avoid Arsenal and Tottenham because they're in it. When I was in school, Tottenham was the most famous English team I know. Besides Liverpool, everybody know Tottenham and Liverpool.
Yeah.
Every time I have a FA Cup final, every time they have a FA Cup final, everybody back in Tottenham.
Yeah. And I always remember
my father
those,
always back in Liverpool.
0-0 and 1-0 draws.
And you know who I remember? I don't know if any Terry, you remember this player? A player called Stephen Highway used to play for Liverpool. I always used to get kicks and say, how this man named Highway, boy?
Yeah.
What do you name Rush?
Ian Rush. I didn't like Liverpool, but they were a popular
Master
team.
poacher Ian Rush.
So the reality of it is these teams are popular regardless of the results in the last 10 years.
In the bottom line is that the whole idea was in 2 days it died.
Right.
It's not dead. And that's another thing that is false.
Just now. Let me put another piece of perspective here. First of all, we're talking about 12 clubs. 12 clubs that presume to be at the pinnacle of world football, which I think is
World club football.
World football.
Right.
Them clubs could beat any national team, straight up. plain and simple. They play better together, they play more often together, and they better resource than most national teams. So I would say any of those 12 clubs, except for Arsenal, will be able to beat any national team. No, I'm not. I'm just realistic. Yeah, you ain't bringing me here to talk, my guy, nothing. The fact of the thing, though, is that there are hundreds of clubs in Europe that all rely on these mega deals that mainly 2 broadcasters, Sky Sports and BT Sports, have made. So these 2 companies control the financial interests of hundreds of teams all across the continent of Europe, including the islands of Britain. When we start to break down what that means, it's a trickle down, right? So for you to get the top talent in Europe, they have to start somewhere. Where are the academies? Where are the players? So places like Ajax, right? Which is a strong traditional, and Borussia Dortmund have a strong traditional academy structure. A lot of the Bundesliga teams, none of them signed up. You know why? Because they understand that while the top team might be making the top money and making the big money deals, the fact is they're not creating the assets, the players themselves. They're not doing that. For every one player you see bossing the net and playing on a Sunday or playing on a Wednesday, it have about 3-4 little youth man who break their foot. It have about another 10 who was almost, but they just couldn't get the resources to get there. It have another 50, 60 who just didn't have the time to commit because their mother didn't like them playing football as a serious career. It have a lot to make to that, to get to there. It is not just a snap your fingers and you get these assets. You have to, look, Dwight York. Dwight York didn't go from Canaan into Manchester United. There were steps along the way. Russell Latapy, Lasana has a really nice podcast that he started. The Birdie and Barney podcast, and recently the most recent one was with Russell Latapy. His best half an hour footballer I ever see was Russell Latapy against Paraguay in the World Cup in 2006. And what I'm saying is that he talked about his journey in things that you will never see. You will never hear about. You hear about the Porto, you hear about the stint in Scotland, but you never hear about all the little things, all the little sweat on the side of the road. That is how you make these assets, right?
Yes.
So in France,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
That's the whole line, Daniel. Let me hammer this thing home. In France won the World Cup. How many of those players on that French team come from all of those suburbs in Paris?
Or small towns in France.
Right? And how many of them are expats from or immigrants, children of immigrants? The fact of the matter is those big teams are siphoning talent from a lot of small teams. And if you pull the plug on those small teams, the whole piñata collapses.
This is where I disagree. And as I say, I didn't disagree with the the concept of a European Super League, but I did disagree with the method in which they went about doing the European Super League.
So you agree with what I just say?
No, not entirely. Because
Call HR for this guy.
the players are not the only asset to Manchester United. It is a club that has a history, that stands for a brand, that markets that brand as something. So yes, the players have impacted on that history, but the club has a history, and that history has to be taken in account. Arsenal didn't become one of the richest clubs in England with just players. In fact, for the last 10 years, they ain't had players that you could remember, except David Luiz, who we should sell. The reality of it is proper economic, and they build a stadium and all these things. So we need to, it's part of it. You cannot separate the players from the team. It is definitively part of it. But what I'm getting at is, I thought, and I still think, the European Super League will come about in some form. UEFA will give in.
No.
And the reason, and I'm telling you all, mark my words, UEFA will give in, because in the end, money talks. And if those clubs say they are not participating in a European, if tomorrow all those clubs say, hey, you know what, we're not participating in the European Club Championship.
I'll tell you why.
If they say that, where UEFA getting money?
I'll tell you why.
UEFA income after that. If all those clubs say, well, hey, what's going on? You all want to ban us. Who watching UEFA Champions League? Not me. I don't want to see Bayern beat up everybody and PSG beat up everybody and meet in the final.
Who PSG beat them? They get real knuckles.
They're going to win Champions League this year. They're going to win Champions League.
PSG is a step above us.
Yeah, but
they're going to win Champions League.
Chris, we had to find him somewhere.
Unfortunately, words.
This chip blow or something.
Mark my words. That's it. PSG
it didn't last.
is winning Champions League.
It didn't last because
and again, that's not true. Based on what I've been reading behind the scenes,
it's still going on.
Contracts were signed and they can't get out. So as much as these clubs,
contracts with who?
The European Super League signed it's an actual legal entity, and the clubs that joined legally.
So you're gonna have a backlash now. With
it will have a backlash, and I think what the problem begins where public pressure put the English clubs were put to English clubs, and they decided to back out of it. But now contractually they haven't. So it becomes a problem.
See, it's
you all know that also that the Champions League for next year, the format has changed. And the reason it changed was because of the same reason that bigger clubs were saying, we are not getting enough money out of Champions League.
The reason they're not getting enough money, Chris, is because of the way clubs pay players today. They're leveraging future earnings to pay to play their players.
I agree.
So they're looking at their player and they're saying, all right, you know what, George? You could sell X amount of T-shirts. You could bring in X amount of seats. All right. You could fill extra amount of seats. This is how we're going to pay you. For the next year, you're going to do so. So they're looking at what you could do on the pitch, but they're also looking at what's the audience you're bringing.
True. Possibly
right?
bringing.
So a lot of the international players also bring their international fan bases. That's why you're starting to see a lot more Asian players, South Asian, China, Korea, Japanese.
Yeah.
You're starting to see a lot more of these players because of the Yao Ming effect. Yao Ming in the NBA created a huge potential market for the NBA. And when people start to see the numbers, they'll be like, oh, okay. So you're starting to see those elements moving into traditional football. Traditionally, football was about gate revenue, shirt front revenue, your manufacturer and your kit revenue, plus your whatever other deals you would have had. Then on top of that was your TV revenue split from the FA. What you're starting to see now is they're saying, all right, you know what? On top of those traditional revenue streams, you have about 7 to 9 traditional revenue streams. You're now starting to see they add in future earnings from a player. So you're paying 300 million euros, but you're getting back 500 million euros 5 years from now. That's why you're starting to see these long-term contracts and all of that. But the money is not real money, it's monopoly money, right? So it's not imbut pesos in your thing that you could go and spend in the market and buy 10 pounds of cassava and make pie or whatever it is you want to do. It is not that. It is future earnings, leveraged buyouts, leveraged earnings. And the American sports model is now being superimposed on the traditional European football powers, and some of them just don't have enough asset base to leverage. So if you go to a small club, hold on just a second.
I agree with
If
him.
you go to a small club in, let me say, like a Malmö in Sweden, created huge players, Zlatan, first of his name, only player, you see my pause raise again?
Zlatan. Yeah, I'll give
Sir
Zlatan is a- Zlatan is a star.
Although you couldn't score on
Zlatan
Chaka
is a
Zlatan,
star.
hard luck. The point of the matter is, they don't have the revenue base, right? They don't have a pitch that they could say, all right, we're going to take and put it in the bank and use that money to buy a big player. They can't, right? All them clubs like Grasshoppers in Switzerland, you can't, they don't have the asset base. They don't have the size, the raw material to bring to the football. So they can't buy the big players. What about those clubs, Chris?
Hold that thought.
All of them?
Hold that thought.
Hold that thought?
Yeah. You hold that thought.
I hold in it.
Hold
We'll
it,
take a
hold it.
break. Viewers,
I hold the
we're
thought.
taking a break. We'll
And
be
somebody
right
bring
back.
that Lasco fan for Chris.
Yeah, we'll be right
Heating
back
up
after
here.
the short
You have
break.
a chip blow.
Like a get out of heating here now. We'll be right back after the short break. Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to Scoreboard on ACTN. I'm chatting with Dennis and Chris. And, you know, anytime these guys here is always some hot topics we're dealing with. We were talking about the Super League that died.
And you give me
Pop
a
and
thought.
fizzle.
You give me
Yeah,
a thought
and
to
I
hold.
think that,
A hole in it.
I think that
A hole in
there
the thought.
isn't much we can add to it again.
The only
Just
thing
as
I-
how it died.
The only thing I want to add to it is one of the problems with he alluded to the fact that the American business model is now coming over into Europe. And that is a very real thing because many of the English clubs, Manchester City, and a number of these big clubs, when the chance to be bought by English billionaires, millionaires at the time it came up, they didn't. And what happened was American investors who understand the value of our sports team, understand the value of our sports franchise, went in and bought these teams. And now they are conducting business in the way they have always conducted business. So I find it very difficult for English clubs to be saying, well, we don't want these Americans coming here and spoiling our game. When you were offered the opportunity to buy your clubs, you didn't. That's why Glazer family owns Manchester United and not some English billionaires. And when the chance came up to buy Manchester United for $1, everybody, boy, that ain't worth that. But these Americans sat back, saw the value, went in, bought it, and have since made their millions or trillions or billions. So that is part of the cultural change that's happening, and that cultural change will spread all the way through FIFA.
You know, look at a sport that has that type of pay structure. It has that type of revenue structure, and it has those kinds of restrictions to entry. Formula One. So the top 3 teams in Formula One have their own very sealed, very secretive revenue sharing pact. And what has happened? The world body has decided, you know what? We can't change that contract, but what we can do is we can change the rules to make the thing more competitive. Right? Otherwise, what happens? It gets boring.
It
Do
does.
you want to see Ferrari and Red Bull and Mercedes win every single weekend? No.
Yeah.
Right? Look at that show on Netflix.
What show
right?
is that, buddy?
Drive to Survive with Formula One. The stories, the real compelling stories in the middle. Why this team fighting for last place, second to last place. Those things, you wouldn't watch those cars because the cameras on the race day don't even focus on these cars. You don't see them. You see them on the starting grid, and that's the end of that.
And then you see them when they finish.
But when
or they
you
crash.
start to hear about the stories, it's hundreds of people, it's lives, it's stories, building all of those things together. When the Football Association, because there are only 2 teams in the British FA that have those kinds of background stories, and then there's Barcelona that has that story as well. So I think it's Sunderland, I think it's Barcelona, and there's somebody else I can't remember right now. And they're telling those stories. Those stories are more compelling than those nil-nil draws in the middle of some mud patch in the back of somewhere in the Midlands in England.
You sure you're talking about Trinidad
No, I'm
football
actually
league?
talking about Tottenham. Right? No, the fact of the matter is those stories are far more compelling. So there is more gold to get from that than there are from having a Classico or a Milan derby every Wednesday is madness.
Is that Tottenham fan?
No,
He's a Tottenham fan?
I am stating this as a red man, first of all, again. I am an Arsenal fan. Through thick and thin.
Yeah.
Goodness. Anyhow, that
Besides,
Thick and thin.
has one character flaw that we will allow to discuss on this.
yeah, we are off the air. No,
Ja, you hear what these people say
let's
about
talk a
team,
bit
eh?
about.
We will deal with them. Ja,
We had some good news here last couple of days.
Yes, sir.
Saturday with Jeremy Richards. Also, Nicholas Paul has been doing a fantastic
excellent.
job outside there. And I know you want to talk a bit about fun ride or something that is being organized for him.
So Nicholas Paul, world record holder, Trinidad and Tobago, son of the South soil. He recently launched the TNT to Tokyo online virtual ride. So what is this ride? It's to help raise funds. The reality of it is the Cycling Federation is cash-strapped. The government, the Ministry of Sport is cash-strapped. So the reality of trying to get Nicholas to all of the different events that he has to participate in, to be ready to step on that podium, because let me face it, Nicholas is that fast.
Yeah.
Right? So that goes beyond any doubt or anything. Nicholas is that fast, and for him to be able to climb the top step, we ain't just trying to get the youth man to show up in Tokyo because we had that. This is not no glad man thing. This is to get Nicholas on the top step of the podium. Over the weekend, 2 weekends ago, he was in Belgium for his season opener. He did really well. He had a nice time. He came up against Jason Kenny. And his two-time Olympic gold medalist, Jason Kenny, right? You have to remember that he had a couple of rides, too many rides in his legs, and Jason Kenny had a much easier way into the final against Nicholas because Jack Carlin, Scottish rider, also on Great Britain team, he fell in that second ride, so he was facing Jason Kenny, who was fresh. So you had to bring all your guns to face a guy like that. So he came second, but he came second against the best in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. Second time, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
very incredible.
all of that to say that right now we need that help. On average, and we will put up the graphic with some of the costs breakdown for Nicholas's equipment and his special needs with regards to his preparation. He needs on average about $450,000 a year, each and every single year that he competes. And right now, we have to finish off the little polishing of this gem so that he would be able to represent Trinidad and Tobago to the fullest of his potential.
And he needs it more than ever because the Olympics is when? There's a couple
July 23rd it's starting.
Yeah.
100 days to go was what, last week or week
Something
before?
like that, yeah.
Right?
And then
So-
I want to add to that, I think Tennille Campbell has been doing really well. She's been riding, she's done a few races in the Spring Classics, it's called. Even though, I saw a newspaper article and you can, sometimes I just think the lack of knowledge of our sport reporters is sadly very...
We had a whole course, but
Yeah, we had a course. She finished 100th in the race and it was, she finished 100 and she was...
that was the
really-
headline.
Right? And I think obviously they didn't understand that Tennille was actually very much a massive part of her team's effort to win the race. And she had a very specific role in the race, which she did excellently. I was looking at the race, and I have been able to see large portions of the race. I was seeing it live. And she was actually the person leading the pace inside the last 10K, which is a massive, massive thing for her. So I thought she did really well. I would want to keep wishing her all the success.
Yeah,
so.
Tennille, or Teniel, as the Europeans pronounce her name. Teniel was doing extremely well. Right? She was driving that pace for the last probably over 5 kilometers in a race. And
Right
you don't
at the
see
end.
that. You don't see that. Usually what happens with that kind of pace line, you would have 3 or 4 riders switching rules. She drove the pace for 5 kilometers at the end of a race.
And had everybody stringing
And stringing it out. So the amount of wattage, Teniel, enough respect, you're really showing. And I think she's ready to take the next step to the next level. She had a hard time in the early part of the season.
It's been a tough internship for her with this team. Then you're talking about athletics. Jereme Richards has been running really...
Jereme was running in a strong headwind.
That's the
when
event
was
on
that?
Saturday.
Saturday or Sunday? Over the weekend.
Yeah.
And
Saturday.
in Eugene, in a nice new stadium, is really nice, but a strong headwind in that stretch is going to affect the times. And of course, you know, these Americans want to see a world record every time you run out on the track. But I think the headwind situation over there in that new track in Eugene is going to be a problem for the optics of world leading and world championship and
Maybe that'll switch
world
around.
record times. They might have to switch that so they'll start to run counterclockwise or something. But he had a great time. He took out Noah Lyles. It was Josephus Lyles, the younger brother.
Yes, yeah.
All right, he took him out. He had a really incredible time. Season's best for him, and you know, one of the top 10 times in the world. And certainly, Jareem is definitely podium ready. I can't say it in any better way.
So far, we have seen Tennille, Nicholas, and Jareem, who has really, you know, been up there. But we're not going to have any senior champs, you know, to see our athletes, you know, qualified. Who are some and how are they going to qualify to make the Trinidad team for the Olympics?
The 400, 200, 100 for the men, 100 meters in track and field, those are going to be real fireworks. Unfortunately, we won't be able to see those fireworks because most of those athletes are based abroad. And what has happened is the NCAA, the NCAA has waived the compulsory participation at Open Champs for national team selection. That is all because of the COVID lockdown and the
travel restrictions
and the
quarantine restrictions.
quarantine and all of these different things. So it will be hard for a professional athlete to stop training for 7 days entry, 7 days exit. That's if you could even get a flight, right? Because you have to go through the exemptions and all of that. So what has happened is these athletes have to make the performance standard abroad and get the rankings in the event.
So
right?
it's going to be a little tough because athletes...
Standards are ridiculously high.
Yeah, one, and then you're going to have athletes stretching their resources. The nice part about coming back for the nationals is you could have said, okay, I'm going to run 3 meets, then I'm going to come back for the open nats, run my time and qualify, and then I don't have to think about anything else. But the reality of it is you might go to a meet, like he talked about the Oregon meet, you meet a headwind, you don't do the time. And sometimes you might find yourself going to another meet, you know, you didn't do the time. As weird as it sounds, a lot of times the expenditure to go, for example, if you bought a plane ticket to go from New York to LA or LA to New York, is as expensive, if not more, than flying from New York to Trinidad.
Yeah.
So it's not cheaper for some of these guys.
So would you say
internal,
it's a disadvantage for athletes?
it's definitely a disadvantage.
It's a huge
and makes life
Huge.
very difficult for them?
It makes life very difficult for them.
All the local based athletes, like the Farina brothers, for instance, the twins, they compete in here, but they were basically barred from participation on the World Relays team. They couldn't be called because they couldn't leave.
But what I want to find out now, Dennis, is that what about the local athletes who would have the opportunity to run at the
World Relays?
The senior champs?
Oh, Open Champs.
Right, Open champs, in order to qualify, right? Now, there is no...
They don't have any opportunity.
So
Nothing.
the only ones that have the opportunity right now
Are the foreign based?
foreign based.
Right. So the kids in school, we have some real talent coming out of the school system. Dwight St. Hilaire in Kentucky, he is ranked I think in the top 5 in the world in the 400. We also have other youngsters like Che Lara. We have Joshua St. Clair. We have aside from the traditional names of the pros, right? So the Marshall Cedenios and the Dion Landors, etc. We have a crop of really talented youngsters. Andre Marcano, he's not a youngster. He made his first Trinidad and Tobago team, and you know it's like a bittersweet pill. One day you get the call, you're on the team, right? You know, you wait for it to sink in, and then you make that post, and then the next day it's like, Yeah, about that. Yeah, we canceled the trip. So yeah, you know, it's tough. You know, you have guys like Andre who are doing well, who've been doing well traditionally over the years, but just never made that next step to the national team. Now that they do, you had to deal with. There's a lot of mental hurdles, and that's something I think that the sports organizations in Trinidad have not really been taking on. Like for instance, in track and field. Track and field has been concentrating for this year, even though it's a start and start season, under 17 and under 9 and under 20 for Carifta team selection. What about the under 15s? They're not in school because they don't have exams to prep for, right? So they've been out of school since second term
Last
2020, and they're not in school until maybe September this year. So that's over a year and a half. They're not competing. Some of these kids, if they're anything like my children, I know they're drinking packed juice and eating snacks whole day.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Right?
Diet.
So the fact is, we need to figure out how to keep those youth especially, but also the pros, the kids who are trying to vie for NACAC under 23, Pan Am Juniors.
Let me add to that. Cancellation of Carifta games is more than likely possible.
Very likely.
Cancellation of Carifta Triathlon Championships, more than likely possible.
And this last week I saw all the entries events that it was supposed to be
Postponed.
having has been canceled.
Cancellation of any type of Carifta swimming championships,
Right.
more than likely cancelled.
But what would you
For
say,
the second year in a row.
Yeah, but what would you say is the effect of this on athletes? How much are
Massive.
they mentally strong enough to
Massive. We massive.
continue or to just fall by the wayside?
One of the points that Tay was making that we and I mean when we come back we'll expand on it, I hope, is right now only the national teams are allowed to train, right? So
Yeah.
the national netball team, football team, cricket team, right? Let's maybe basketball team, but I don't know if they'd have one.
3x3, yeah.
But listen, schools football, when last it had that? What they're doing? Any of those football teams under 19, under 17, under 16, any of them playing any football other than small goal in the road? And that and all they can't play because right now they can't play that. So all of those things have stopped. People not running, people not playing cricket. When last they had any under 17 tournament? The West Indies cricket board couldn't have a regional under 19 tournament. So they're trying to see if they could select a West Indies under 19 team by having national team have trials. But the national teams in some cases just pulling together a group of people, hoping for the best. But they don't even know if the group of people they pulled together was the best. So it just makes things utterly confusing.
We have a crisis in sport, and we are not being led by policy that is proactive and thoughtful enough to think about the mental preparation as well as the physical constraints. Right now, we're in crisis.
On that note, we're taking a break. When we come back, we'll continue with that crisis because my concern is how much of these young athletes will hold on for another year because it appears as another year coming. Right? Viewers will be right back after the short break. Welcome back, viewers. Welcome back to Scoreboard on ACTN. And as I said, if you missed any part of this program, there's a repeat tomorrow at 1 p.m. and also on Saturdays at 2 p.m. So you can't miss Scoreboard. Gentlemen, before the break, we were talking about a crisis in sports.
Major.
And
Major.
indeed, it was a crisis.
We have no young athletes between the ages of, let's say, 10 or 8, all the way to about 16, in any serious form of athletic activity, organized athletic activity at this time. And that seems very unlikely to happen in the near future and has not happened for going on to a year or more in some cases in some sports. So the reality of it is footballers, cricketers, we talked before the break about how the West Indies is trying to pick a under-19 cricket team. There are many other tournaments going on. We are only at this point prioritizing our senior teams, be they male or female. But these are not the only, in fact, they make up 1% of all the participants in any sport on any given day. So the other 99% are home and either being involved in an unorganized improper form of athletic activity that we are not, as a government and as a sporting body, we have not sat down and planned properly for. We have literally ignored them. Our attitude to it, sadly to say, is to throw our hands up in the air and say, well, we have to ban everything, or they can't go and play no football, they can't do nothing, hard luck. And we have not seriously thought about the implications on their health, their mental well-being, and in the end, the future of our sports 5 years down the road with regards how this one particular 12-month, 15-month, 18-month period, because I keep saying that because every time you think it's done, it's going on and on and on and on. By the time it's done,
something like this,
might
right?
be 24 months.
Think of something like this, George. We have early childhood care. So you have preschool, you have 3 years of preschool, them home. You have 2 years of first year, second year. Then you have 5 years of primary school. Some cases, 6 or 7 years of primary school. Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. None of them in school. What you used to do in school for recess? Not run around?
Yeah.
Right? So none of them doing that. They're sitting down home, watching TV, Netflix. They're watching, they're not active. Even the ones who are active, who are like some of the kids that I follow on Instagram, a lot of these young athletes are still trying to do something. So who don't have their little home gym with their little bricks that they live in and gas tank and all of that, as a Joe, enough respect, you know? They're doing activities, but it's not competition. How often are you going to be like, you know what? I just got pumped because I lift up a brick for the 15,000th time since I've been home since March last year. Nobody is being motivated. And right now we're starting to see it. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of the youth, they're starting to have all kind of different fancy name, and a lot of them are gang related. The 6 and the 9s and all of the other things. These are all, it have no COVID lockdown for gangs. It have no COVID lockdown for slackness, for recalcitrant behavior, for low motivation. That always on like the fridge. So what we need to do is we need to counteract these things with policy and planning and execution and feedback, because we have to figure out how to save these youth. These youth have not been in anything.
If you want a stark reminder of what's happening, pass by the Queen's Park Savannah at 4:30. 2 years ago, yes, they had people run around the Savannah in large numbers, but on the interior had several.
Probably about over 2 football teams that would have
rugby
practiced.
teams, people playing cricket.
Small goals, sweat, this, that, the
a
other.
number of things happening. Now, you might get 10, 12 little people walking individually on the inside. I'm sure it's the same in every Savannah, in every part of the country, in Point 14 or in San Fernando, in Rio Claro.
In Aranguez, where I live, you're seeing the visible absence. They had maybe about 4 or 5 youth soccer programs there, including my very good colleague, Damian Cooper's academy. And right now, they basically stopped. They had a little 5-minute sweat the other day because, you know, the restrictions were lifted long enough. Right, good. Now they're back again.
So you have all these cricket academies. You know, some sports are continuing. Tennis has been one.
The catch tournament was on the other day.
Table tennis has been one. But outside of that,
table tennis for men.
For men.
Not women.
Many of these tournaments haven't happened. There's no netball tournament happening as far as I know.
There's actually nothing, at present there's nothing happening.
There's no volleyball tournament happening.
The national football team.
The volleyball team training, right?
Yeah, but no, I mean other volleyballers, they can't go and train. Other basketball teams, they can't go and train. And I could go on and on and on and on. There needs to be a decisive shift in the thinking at the top of the sporting pyramid in our country, which is the Minister of Sport and those around her, to change the directional policy that we are now in with regards COVID-19.
And you know what?
I will repeat, a directional change.
The science supports it, right? The science is telling us, listen, we've had a year of masks, we've had a year of data, we've had a year of feedback from this. The masks are in public, outdoors, are nearly irrelevant. Right? We have a law in Trinidad where I could be living home with my girlfriend, my wife, whatever. Once we jump in the car, both of we had a porn mask. Or we get a ticket. And they're boasting in the press about how much revenue they've derived from mask tickets. What is that? This is like you're trying to jump higher by pulling up your own shoelace. This policy is ridiculous.
But do we have a solution of how do we get sports back into the country in some controlled environment?
I will say this, at this present time, we do not have a solution, but we are not going to ever find a solution unless we look for one. And at this present time, we are not looking for a solution. Constantly, what we are doing is simply saying, infection rate go up, ban people playing football. All they do no sports, all they stay in all their house. Are there any real statistics to support the increase in numbers now with increased sport and activity? No. But you know what? It's safe to just ban it. I always say, the way that we are operating, is, it reminds me of, like, you know, a time I had an injury and I went to the doctor and I said, well, I think I get injured. He said, yeah, stop all sports. Don't do nothing. I said, but you're not sure if, well, you know, maybe I could do, nah, just don't do nothing.
Yeah, you know, the policy is being led by it's a lack of data, George. It's a lack of honest scientific feedback from the communities outside of just the health providers. Why isn't it that the sports organization can have that same level of prominence as a CMO or a Minister of Health? Why can't we say, all right, you know what? The government is going to host a talk panel open to the public, open to the media, where people can listen to it, and it's broadcast on the national broadcast, airwaves, media, TV, Facebook, FM station, everything, and hear what the sports people are saying. Listen, we can conduct our own events because we have a responsible set of protocols which the athletes are buying into, which the clubs are buying into, which the officials have said, you know what, this is going to work. And if it doesn't work, we can change it. But just saying we're locking down, this is about, we're talking sports here, but this is about everybody. The people who are dying have underlying health conditions. They're obese, they have heart conditions, they're diabetic, they're hypertensive.
So you know what?
The number one line
exercise
in any sports production or anything is a fit person. Even a sport like archery, you still had to train for it. That raises your heart rate. You're going to have some major benefit from it. So telling people, look, golf. We're talking about a certain leader of our country. He's a prominent golfer. He's well known as a golfer. What he contracted the COVID virus.
The man is
Are we saying that he contracted it on a golf course? We don't have that data, but now you can't play nothing.
Yeah.
This don't make sense. This don't make sense. It's not me. I don't have no tinfoil hat. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But what I am saying is that let's hear the data, right?
But even so, again, we are dealing with a virus. And at some point...
Viruses do what viruses do. Viruses are designed to kill living organisms. That's their job.
And at some point, we need to work out that we are past the point of we can't stop the spread of the virus. We need to start to figure out how we're going to exist with this virus and exist in such a way that we continue to be, as athletes or people, in the best health possible, so that if we do get the virus, we are in the best physical fitness, health, that we can resist or battle the virus. If we are, there's so many factors that we are not considering. So from that point of view, I'm always thinking, look, we need a change in policy. We need a change in the direction or the thinking. You know, I want to say, yes, maybe, this is where it could come from, but I'm not seeing where it's coming from. Everybody, as I say, is just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, this thing beating us. And I'm saying, well, no, it's not. Some of these other countries, so take Italy as a classic example. Italy had massive amount of death. 10,000 people died. But they are having sporting events. So they have worked out a way within their country to have sporting events, to have international sporting events, to have local sporting events.
Look what's happening in India. And the IPL is going on.
But not only that, what I'm saying is, yes, so there is always going to be a risk, and there's issues happening, and there's infection. But all these countries have started to figure out a way to mitigate these risks, minimize these risks, while still allowing their citizenry to live an active lifestyle.
You know, there was this big meme, you know, sunlight does kill COVID, right? So the reality of it is that the virus is spread in particles coming out of your mouth, from your respiration, from your speech, when you cough, when you sneeze, etc. When it lands on something on your hand, touch it or whatever. Yeah, inside, indoors, no problem. It will last on those surfaces. Outdoors, it doesn't last. So the fact is, yes. But you know what else the sunlight is doing? The sunlight is a key component in your immune system. If you do not get prolonged, at least 20 minutes of sunlight per day,
Yeah.
right? And the darker your skin is, the longer you need, and the more brighter sun you need to hit that lunchtime. So you all right. You could go any morning and take a job. I had to hit the mic about like the latest 10 o'clock. But the darker you need to get that strong sunlight. The part of the vitamin metabolism in your body that takes place. It's not a science show, but you could Google it. Sunlight immunity. You could go and find out for yourself. This is no conspiracy theory. If your children not going out into the sun, it's compromising their immunity defense to things like virus. So you need to put that out there. We need to get our kids outside. We need them to run around. We need them to do a little 2-3 push-ups a day. We need that. That is not... It is ridiculous if your policy is not addressing those needs. Then you're hurting us.
The flu virus in the States, the biggest flu season,
kills hundreds of thousands of people every year.
Isn't in summer. It's in winter when people can't get out. The flu season isn't in summer. It is in winter when people cannot get outside, when people suffer from what we call cabin fever. Having experienced that where you just can't get outside and you're going from one indoor environment to the next, I can tell you it is real. We here have the ability to get our population out every single day, and yet we are refusing to have a policy that does exactly that.
Yeah, you know, we're telling people we can't go to the beach.
Beach?
Because the sand on collect the COVID particles. No, the water, you need to get that sun. You would spend, if you spend an hour at the beach, you're spending most of that hour in direct sunlight. That is a very important part of your immunity defense.
The strange thing about it is that we yet going into another year to hear a policy from the Ministry
Nothing.
of Sport.
The Ministry of Sport has disappointed in regards formation of a policy and a direction for which sports needs to follow in the pandemic. Nothing has been forthcoming, and it is a sad case. The sport company has not, and I don't think, you know, based on how they operate right now, which is they are really facility managers, other than saying you can't go in this facility now because it's COVID, I haven't seen anything from the sport company that will direct us to say it's a policy change, a policy direction, this is what we think we should be doing. And in essence now, as I've been seeing the way the sport company is operating, I suppose I should not expect that. We really need to get it from the Ministry of Sport. I'm hoping that we get some policy change. It can't come from the sporting bodies themselves, the NSOs. They don't have the resources. They're mostly manned by volunteers. These people are under stress in their normal day.
A big part of what we see in as spikes is not because of the word jack, boop, 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 the scene. It's not that. It's because people have compromised immunity, and now they're going out and they're more vulnerable. This is, I could say it with just as much data to back it as any one of the so-called policy makers in this country, because they don't present data anyway. Right? So what we need is a proactive policy. All right, yes, some of our vulnerable population is going to die. But you know what? They're dying anyhow. What are the other deaths? 149 people died from COVID in a year and a half. More people died in Laventille from shooting in 2020. Laventille, I ain't talking about Trinidad. Laventille alone. Do we see billions of dollars in resources being committed to stopping gun crime? No.
I know we could go on.
Ask Fitzgerald, he says yes.
We're running out of time. quick closing comments.
Closing
Just have about
comments.
less
I
than a
think
minute.
I just want to say I really dearly look forward to a change in the sporting policy with regards COVID from the Ministry of Sport. If it's not forthcoming, Keith, you can always appoint me minister. I will do the work for you. Do Fred.
I just want to say, check out the Central Spoke Cycle Club website and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They have all the information. You can check out TT Game Plan online. We have all the information for the Nicholas TNT to Tokyo ride. You don't have to be a cyclist. You could run, jog, ski, swim, kayak, whatever. And you can also make a donation.
Well, gentlemen, thank you all very much. We have run out of time. Remember, tomorrow at 1, Saturday at 2. Catch us next week, Tuesday, right here.